Hi guys, welcome to another Open World LocFact. Today we're going to talk about Overwatch.
Are you with me?
The hype is real and we couldn't be more excited to talk about the game.
Overwatch is set 60 years into the future of a fictionalized Earth, but there are several cultural aspects that were considered in order to make this hypothetical Earth seem a little more real and familiar to players.
That's right. All of the playable maps are based on real-world places. From the technological marvels of Busan to the living history of Rialto, every map has objectives, secrets, and strategies to explore.
One of my favorites is Hanamura. Just by looking at it, you can tell it's based in Japan with its beautiful and imposing architecture. This colorful land and its iconic cherry blossoms are dwarfed by Mount Fuji in the background. It's so gorgeous.
I couldn't agree more, but my all-time favorite has to be Paris, with the classical narrow streets and beloved locations like the Seine River, Cabaret Luna, the Grand Patisserie Galante, and Maison Marat, all with the Eiffel Tower as the obligatory center of attention.
Absolutely amazing. Diversity and culturalization were clearly also important in the creation of playable characters.
For example, we have Zarya, full name Alexandra Saryanova. She's from Russia and she wears her colors proudly. Overwatch director Jeff Kaplan noted her as an example of how character designs can challenge stereotypes and typical character traits.
That is a strong Russian accent. We can also play as Sombra, which is Spanish for shadow or shade. And yes, she's from Mexico. Her real name is Olivia Colomar, and the skull in Sombra's icon is a classic example of art from Mexico's Dia de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead festival. Fun fact, the name of Sombra's childhood teddy bear, Arturito, comes from the Spanish nickname for the Star Wars character, R2-D2.
I love seeing unique and well-developed characters. Just like Charlotte Chan, the lady who voices Tifa, said at this year's BlizzCon. Diversity isn't just important for people playing it, but also for the actors behind the characters. You have such a strong hero character that is similar to me.
And Blizzard is hardly the first developer to create a game with a diverse cast of characters, but the key to Overwatch's success is that it really does feel organic. Blizzard wanted to show the fandom that this is how the world is. It's full of different people of all sorts of genders, races, and builds. That's our world.
Well, that's all the LocFact time we have for today. See you in the next one.
And let us know which Overwatch character you love most in the comments. Thanks for tuning in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Open World. Today, here with us, we have Federica Lusardi. Federica began working in the video game industry when she moved to London in 2011 to study for an MA in audiovisual translation. After a brief time as a language tester for Sega, and also after translating her first game for Codemasters as a freelancer, she worked at Pole to Win as an in-house translator and team supervisor. Federica joined Square Enix in 2016, where she currently works as an Italian translator and editor. Her work encompasses translation for games and marketing campaigns, and she has translated games such as Life is Strange 2, Life is Strange Before the Storm, the Final Fantasy trading card game, and Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. Welcome, Federica. We are super happy to have you here today. How are you?
Good. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here as well.
Welcome, Fede.
I love your background. Who are your buddies there?
Snorlax.
I'm seeing
Chocobo.
Snorlax.
Yeah, I see Snorlax there.
It's a Snorlax
Yeah.
because my boyfriend actually works in Pokemon, so
Ooh.
we have
Oh.
flashes.
How cool is that? What a power couple there. Love
Yeah.
it.
He's basically us, like it's the representation of.
I love it. Snorlax
Who
has
wins,
always been
Fat
my
Chocobo?
favorite. Oh, go ahead.
No, who wins, Fat Chocobo or Snorlax?
I say Chocobo is the fatter, so probably it's me.
I think
Because
you're
I like
right.
eating a lot. So, and for some reason, the fat Chocobo is even fatter than Snorlax, which is amazing. But
I love it.
So Federica, as I said, it's a real pleasure to have you with us today. And we were super curious about your career. We wanted to know what's been the biggest challenge so far establishing yourself as a translator.
right, yes, I think in general I've been pretty lucky with my career because I entered the industry right after studying, after finishing my master's actually. But I think in general, like the biggest challenges have been how to choose my path. So let's say, and I'm not saying choosing whether to be a tester or whether to be a translator or, but I'm saying whether to choose the kind of translator to be. Each type of translator brings their own challenge. So in the past 10 years, I've been working both as a freelancer a bit in between the in-house jobs and as an in-house translator for a publisher and also as an in-house translator for a translation agency. And I think all of them have their kind of different challenges to establish yourself. And if I want to start from the freelancing position that I'm not doing anymore, but I can hear that my ex-colleagues have exactly the same problems. I would say that first of all, due to the harsh competitions that there are between video game company, usually you can work both as an in-house translator and a freelancer for video games at the same time, because usually your NDA would say that you can't work for a competitor, basically. So even if it's not the same kind of video games, usually you want to avoid that, which is hard somehow, because if you live in a expensive city like London, you like to have a kind of dual wage, if I can call it like that.
Yeah.
But it's very tempting, but you can't. So either you work for another translation field or you keep doing one or the other. And the biggest challenge for myself is choosing, okay, do I want to be a freelancer or do I want to work in a studio in-house? And I would say that in my days as a freelancer, the hardest thing that I had to do was trying to beat the competition, because there are a lot of freelancers out there and a lot of valid linguists. And especially for my language pair from English to Italian, there's plenty of people doing that. And also, they're also not professional translators, let's call them like that. There's people who think that speaking two languages make you a translator. And
that doesn't matter the language that you're translating into, that applies to any language. There are people
I know,
that are
right?
not necessarily
regardless of the language.
professionals, right?
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
And it's a bit hard because not only you have to keep a competitive rate compared to your proper colleagues or the other valid linguists, but you need to keep a competitive rate with these people that want to be translators, but they're not really translators. And I noticed that the rates are keep going down and down, and not only for the competition, but also for the changes in the industry. So I noticed that this year, for example, there's more and more agencies or more companies that due to COVID, they say, okay, but we're not earning so much, so we're going to lower your rate as well, which is not really fair in a way, I'd say, because I understand that they're not earning as much as they were earning before, but we also need to live, So we can't
exactly. We all need to pay our bills.
Exactly.
You're still doing the same excellent work, you would hope.
Exactly. You're spending your time. Maybe you're not traveling because you're not taking transport, but you still need to pay your bill, as you said. So it's not really fair, I think. Plus, it's not just a matter, like being a freelancer is not just a matter of competitive rates, but also you always need to be on the lookout for new opportunities. So you can't be lazy and just sit there and wait for jobs to come. You need to keep looking either on LinkedIn or on the platform like Rosette that I'm not really a big fan of, to be honest. But you need to be proactive, say, and you can't stay still and do nothing. And if you don't find jobs, you might have periods where you don't earn any money for a few weeks, and that's, I think, a big challenge. And maybe you need to find something else to do in the meantime, like some translation for other fields that maybe are not ideal for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that you end up because of this need to cover your essential bills and your essentials for that matter. You end up working in other fields, and you start losing that opportunity to become a specialist in what you're passionate about. And there's also the other side, that there are other companies that may not be as professional as well, and may take advantage of people that are just coming into the industry and may not be as experienced on how to present their rates, or how much to charge, or how to quote a project. And since there are not many opportunities out there, they are tempted to lower their rates even more to be more competitive. And yeah, it's a bit of a challenge there.
dual challenge, dual issues, both for the companies, and then it reflects on the freelance translators, of course.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And I found there are similarities between being a freelancer and working as an in-house translator for a translation agency, because usually translation agencies don't offer you permanent contracts unless you're very, very lucky like me. When I entered Port2Win in London just established. I think it was a few months that I was there. So it was one of the few people. I was, I think, employee number 30. So it was really, really early.
And they're huge now. It's amazing.
And they're huge, exactly. And I was really lucky, and I almost got the permanent contract almost immediately. But most of the people that I saw coming through the years when I worked there were employed as a project basis contract. So obviously, maybe you're there for 3 months because it takes 3 months to translate the game that they're offering you. But maybe then you stay home for a month, 2 months. Or maybe they offer you a position that you're less keen on doing, like being a tester. Really like being a tester. It's where you start. But then ultimately, I wanted to be a translator. So it was not really my dream. Plus, if we think about establishing ourselves as translators, both freelancing and working in-house for translation agency have the problem that often you're not credited for the games that you're translating, because often they credit the agency rather than the single translators. And that's a bit of a problem when you want to build your portfolio. On the other hand, if you're working like for a publisher like I do, yes, it has more securities, it has more advantages on the long term, like being included in the green credits, working for renowned companies. Like you can go around and say, "Oh, I work for Square Enix." And, nice, you're working for Square Enix. But if I say I'm working for Port2Win, I mean, it's established for us in the industry. We know what it is, but not for the generic public. Right. And on the challenges side, it's much, much harder to enter because there are not many companies that have in-house teams anymore. And the current employees tend to keep their harder position for many years. So there are less opportunities on the market. Just so that you know, like I applied for 3 jobs in total in Square Enix during like 2-3 years.
Wow.
And I only entered for the last position they applied for. So you need a lot of patience. And I think those are the main challenges that you are facing when you want to be an established translator.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you're determined enough as you were, and you kept applying and you were very, very interested in working at Square Enix, then you might just get it like you did, right?
Because sooner or later, someone will change their job, so positions will open, but it's not as common as for a translation agency, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, with all of that, you've mentioned your portfolio. It seems like you've had experience working with a lot of not only different positions, but different game genres as well. So I'm wondering, really, what would be the difference in your mind between translating, say, a visual novel and other video game genres?
You're right. I've been translating. I would call it visual novel, or as they call it now, like kind of walking simulator. I see
Sure,
a lot of
yeah.
walking simulator on Steam.
Yeah.
Or I've been translating a racing game as soon as I entered the industry as a freelancer. Been translating puzzle games, RPGs, adventures, because the more names you put in a game genre, the more it's fashionable right now. So adventure, action, RPG,
For sure.
puzzle, something.
Little of
something.
everything.
Rogue-like, Souls-like. Names that come up now.
And yeah, first of all, I think in general, if you're a game localizer, you need to be interested in a bit of everything.
Sure.
So it doesn't depend on the genre, but also on the genre. You need to be interested in things like from culture to current events like geopolitics, sports, whatever you need for your game. So you need to research as soon as you receive a game to translate. You need to research and you learn more and more. And I say one of the distinctive traits of visual novels is that there are text-heavy games, very text-heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And the majority of the text files that you're going to receive are because of the different ramifications of the story and the presence of multiple endings. The UI, on the other hand, usually it's minimal. So mostly it's just dialogue and dialogue choices. And not only you need to translate that, not only you need a good context or the game available, if it's available somewhere, but also a breakdown of the ramifications and their consequences. And those are crucial elements to translate visual novels, which maybe are not as crucial for other games. And you need to keep into account that sometimes the choices and the dialogues are not tidy in the files you receive. So you really need that breakdown of how the whole game is going in order to understand how to translate the various things, because maybe you have the whole dialogues and the whole lines of one characters first, and then you have the whole dialogues and the whole lines of the second character, and they're not in the order they pronounce them, how they pronounce them. So it's quite hard to build a natural and flowing dialogue with those kind of file structures, because sometimes you find a string that says yes, and you don't know what it refers to. So it can be translated also as a no, depending on how you translated the question before. So you really need to
that's tricky.
go back and forth and check and do all those double checks. So the only thing that helps you if you don't have any context is the string ID usually. And depending on how the developers work, can be useful, can be helpful, but not so helpful. Also, the string IDs change all the time depending on the updates, so maybe you don't want to rely too much on them either. It's an interesting, say, research of context, research of ramifications, and you need things that you need to go back and forth, say. And other than that, I think the other crucial point of visual novels is that you need to have a good characterization for the NPC. Not the NPC, I wouldn't call them NPC. I would call them like the main characters of the game, because in the end they're not really NPCs, but people that you talk to during your story. And obviously, if I'm taking into account my experience with Life is Strange, if because it's a game that is so immersive for the players, and players feel so emotionally attached to the characters and the story.
Yes.
You don't want your characterization to be plain and boring. You don't want all the characters to sound the same. So you need to find a kind of, I would say distinctive traits that characterize all of them. And in particular for Life is Strange Before the Storm, I had to go back to my teenage years, even for Life is Strange 2, because they're all adolescents, they're all teens.
Yeah.
And you want them to speak like teens. Of course, you don't want to have this high speech of a like high fantasy RPG medieval.
Can you imagine Skyrim voices, Skyrim translation?
Yeah, exactly, right?
You want it to be real.
Exactly, you want it to be real. And it's not so easy, because I feel like, hey, my teenage years were only, say, 15, 16 years ago, but it's a long time. And I'm not used to speak like that anymore.
Yeah, language evolves so fast that probably teenagers don't speak the same way that we used to 15 years ago.
Also, and then they were also talking. Like, I remember that I had to research ways of saying cigarette in jargon. And disclaimer: I never smoked in my life, so I never asked for a cigarette to my friends. So like, I have no idea how kids call cigarettes these days. So I need to go and look for it. And it was challenging. It's hard. And same thing when I had to translate a kid in Life is Strange too, because he's 10, and you think they don't talk like adults. They speak like kids. He speaks like a kid. And I need to simplify the sentences. I can't use overly complicated verb tenses, for example, or I can't use overly complicated sentence structures. So you need to try to think. You need to possibly to build a style guide, so that you remember what you used, and it's also help for the testers later on, or if they ever want to do a sequel that I'm not translating, they can take references. And yeah, I think the main challenges of visual novel is this kind of things. While I can make a difference with RPGs and adventures, because in those games there's a massive presence of variables that are not there in visual novels. So if in a visual novel you have this kind of tidy strings in your cat tool, usually in RPGs and adventures you have a wall of variables, a wall of tags, and some words in the middle.
Sure.
Here, finally.
Context, organization, and research as much as possible.
Exactly.
Well, would you say that, I mean, I know you work a lot in this genre and we've touched on a few others, but what are you playing right now? Is there a genre that you're super into at the moment?
I love Metroidvanias. So I was playing Hollow Knight last year.
Big fans of Hollow Knight.
It's amazing. And I'm eagerly waiting for Sixth Song, and I don't know when it's coming out because they're not saying anything, and every day I'm checking their Twitter.
Refresh.
We're on your side, so if we hear something, we'll let you know.
Please do. I'm waiting for it. I can't wait. I think they said they will come in 2021. So
yeah, I think I heard the same, but well,
maybe it's just speculation.
Video games industry, right? These days, they keep pushing the release dates. No wonder why. As if it were so easy to develop a game, right?
Yeah, come on. Bing, bang, boom, whip it out.
Yeah, because there's no delays in video game deving,
no,
right?
Not at all.
Never. That doesn't happen.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, Federica, I wanted to know, I mean, we know that you translate both video games and also marketing campaigns, right?
Yes.
What do these two tasks have in common, and what's completely different? Maybe even requiring a different set of skills that you had to acquire along your career?
So yeah, I translate usually, I say more often, materials and assets that surround the release of a game. So we can talk about official websites or promotional images, trailers, videos, press releases, and so on. And the big difference is that you need to research a lot into the game files, because most of the time you are working on marketing materials of a game that you haven't translated yourself. Because obviously I can't be translating every game that Square Enix publishes. It's just me and just one.
Oh my, she's just a human being.
Just a human being.
I'm not a robot yet. So yeah, the thing is, you translate marketing materials on games that you haven't translated yourself, or even games that might not even be translated in your language. Sometimes, like it's the case of Final Fantasy XIV. It's only translated in French and German amongst the figs, but I still get to do press releases. I still get to do videos.
Right.
And it's a matter of like your familiarization, if you want to call it like that, is not playing the game anymore, but it's researching through a ton of game files. And the bare minimum is at least having a glossary with you, or even better if you have text files, of course, or previous resources. And I found that CAT tools are extremely useful for marketing for translation, because you can check everything in your memoQ or whatever other CAT tool that you're using and build your TM for that particular game. And you will see that eventually all the marketing assets will repeat themselves with time. So CAT tools definitely save you a lot of time, a lot of
Yeah.
effort. And you
Love
don't
our
have to
cat
keep-
tools.
You don't have to keep 500 Excel files open to go and look for terms and
Just 500 search tabs with all your different parallel text.
there are actually software that do that for you, but it's still not good as a TM in a CAT tool, I think. I think
agree.
memoQ saved our lives as marketing translators, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
It does everything for yourself, for you.
I'm
and,
completely biased here. I love memoQ.
I love
Same.
memoQ. We actually recently discovered the plugin for videos, which is amazing.
Oh,
That
That
sounds
allows
very
you-
futuristic.
Yeah, it
Wow.
allows you. Basically, as soon as you open an SRT file, and you can upload the video that you're translating, and you can change your things in the SRTs, and it goes automatically in the subtitle on the video preview. It's amazing. It's magic. It's magic because you don't have to check it later on VLC or there are other tools. It's amazing. But yeah, I would say the thing that you need to keep in mind for marketing is understanding the market that you're targeting. Of course, like you don't need to be
Sure.
afraid to go to your marketing team and say, okay, this thing won't work in Italy because maybe it's very specific for Japan, or it's very specific for an English-speaking country, but it won't work for Italy. So go to your marketing team, go to your brand team and say, okay, maybe this we need to change it slightly for our countries. Plus, you always need to try to use a language that is appropriate for the marketing context. So you don't want to be bland in your promotional text.
Yeah.
Text.
Makes a lot of sense.
Not at
Yeah,
all. I
let's
mean,
get
it's,
that
It's
hype
by
up.
our games, right?
it's a
Yeah, you
first
need-
approach to your gamers, right? How can you convince them that the product that they're going to access is actually what they're looking for? You need to speak to them through that campaign.
Exactly. And I think you need to be good with the language in the sense like you need to know how to sell your products, which is principally like something that brand needs to do in the first place, and then you're translating the words. In the end, brand is the experts in markets, so you're really just translating their ideas, but you need to do it in a way that it's appealing for the public.
Right.
But in general, I would say the marketing translation compared to video games involves a bit less creativity and freedom, because in the end, it's just a matter of keeping consistency with the in-game information, and you can't really be creative and add new informations that are not in the game, because then it'd be confusing.
False advertising.
Exactly, it's bad, and it's
You
bad.
just make up stuff.
And you also need to be able to chop your text a lot, much more than for video games. So we know that for UI, usually you need to be a good chopper. You're a translator because you don't have
Mhm.
much space. But it's even more for metadata, because all the metadata, everything that ends up in like on Steam, for example, or on the PlayStation Store or the Microsoft Store will have character limitation. So you need to be able to sell that game in convincing words, but maybe you need to do it within 150 characters, like for a tweet.
You need to tweet it. Tweet it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Tweet.
and imagine if
Tweet.
our languages were German, which is
yes.
way larger than
Good luck.
Italian and even Spanish.
Oh, I'm telling you, Germans. In my experience, all my German colleagues that I had were challenged to those things.
We feel for you, German translators. we
Yeah.
see you. We appreciate you.
If I can have a special mention for trailers and videos as well, I would say that you need to have a bit of audiovisual background, so you know that you know how much text you can cram into a single subtitle. which is something that usually you don't do for video games translation, right? Because subtitles are much longer, it's usually in video games. While for videos, you need to know that you have a number of characters per line that makes the text readable. And
I think that's great advice. So yeah, Federica, regarding, I mean, I know that you have plenty of experience, and I wanted to learn more. You gave us a couple of hints on how the industry has evolved and through the years, but is there anything specific that you've seen since your very first steps in the industry and now regarding technology or how fast the content is produced, or any other detail that caught your attention throughout the years?
Generally, I think from a, say, technical point of view, I think the industry tends to outsource much more than before. Because, to be honest, it's easier, it's cheaper probably, and as I was saying before, there's less and less internal in-house teams, and the internal teams usually, it's harsh to say, but we're there for high speed turnaround, accessible quickly and without incurring in additional costs, which means that we're very handy for marketing translations, but we're not very convenient probably if you need a team of 20 translators and you're in-house, you need to continue paying wages and salaries, while if you outsource, you can just pay them for the project. And it's much more convenient. So I think in the future, there'll be more outsourced translation, less in-house teams. And if I think about games, I would say there's a tendency to do more mobile gaming, and maybe also VR and AR, which I'm not really keen in starting working in, because I think it would be super confusing. I'm just imagining like wearing my VR set. First of all, I get sick because that's me. So if I need to familiarize,
motion sickness as well.
Motion sickness, we're with you there.
So yeah, I see it very hard to familiarize with a VR game. But and also I see text floating everywhere and cutoffs. Because the text will go behind you. And
I can't even play first-person shooters, so I'm no judgment on my end.
But yeah, apart from that, I think mobile gaming will require some new skills, like again chopping efforts in order to adapt text on smaller screen, and also I think getting used to work exclusively on one mobile game and nothing else, because usually it's a type of games that get updated very often. So there's going to be more ongoing localization rather than, you finish a project, you wrap it up, and you go to another project. While mobile
Live
gaming
ops
are updated every week. So yeah, I see that. And finally, I see a stronger presence of automation in the industry. Which we're already seeing through the use of CAD tools, obviously, which help us greatly for our job, because it makes us faster. It's easier, as I was saying earlier, to look through files and have matches for previous marketing translation. And then there's the dreaded machine translation topic that no one wants to talk about. But I admit I was very scared at the beginning before listening to all the conferences about machine translation. And then I met Christina Anselmi, who's always talking about and she's amazing. And she convinced me that it's not, the big bad wolf that will be stealing our jobs eventually. It's just like something that will help us doing a better job. Plus, it's not going to replace us for the most creative translations, probably. And if anything, it probably will create more jobs like post-editing or teaching, actually training the AI. And that's something that I'm really interested in. I want to contact Christina again for it, because it feels like a kind of sci-fi role.
Yeah, the last time I heard Christina talking about AI was at Game Global Summit, where we last met. And I can't wait to hear what they're doing right now and new discoveries on that field because it's super, super interesting.
I agree. It's very interesting. Plus, I'm a fan of sci-fi, so counted as sci-fi is good. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves, especially.
Yeah, we can say that we live in the future now, right? With that.
Absolutely.
As long as it's not Google Translate, everything is fine.
No.
Oh no,
God,
I'm going full metaverse here. Like
yes. Except for the VR, just yet, unless they can work the motion sickness
I mean,
thing.
they will work it through. I mean, they have to work around that. How many people have motion sickness with that?
It
Probably
was
a
a
lot.
thing for 3D cinema, I think. The first time I
Yeah.
saw films in
Yeah.
3D at the cinema, I was feeling sick halfway through.
But they've gotten
So-
better too.
Exactly. I think so. At
Yeah.
least I'm not working. I have friends working in cinema.
Mhm.
I might ask if it still has some success or if no one is going to see 3D films. I don't know. I need to ask.
So, Federica, I want to bring up something that actually we talked about a few weeks back. About the localization of indie games, of some indie games that you've come across that weren't localized into Italian. You mentioned it earlier as well. But you told me that you reached out to some of the devs, right? So, what can you tell us about that interaction? How did that work out? Because you told me just that, and I never knew how it ended.
Yeah, I'm the annoying person that goes to the developer and asks why a game is not translated. No, but I'm a passionate Switch gamer, and I'm not too fond of playing on PC because I think I spent my entire childhood playing on PC because my dad was playing video games and he thought that PC was the ultimate platform. So he said, you don't need a console. So I need to compensate now. And yeah,
Making
and
up for
I
lost
see,
time.
and I see that the indie games that were previously only published on Steam usually
Yeah.
now get to arrive on Switch, and it's great because I think like some indie games are really really valid. I mean, Hollow Knight started as an indie game.
Yeah.
I have 1,000+ hours on The Binding of Isaac,
Nice.
an indie game as well.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there's a lack of Italian localization. And I tend to play in Italian whenever I can, mostly because I like to see the job done by my colleagues. Also, like I like to keep my mind trained on the language that I'm working on every day because I live in London. My boyfriend is not Italian, so I speak English all the time, and that helps me. Even playing games in Italian or reading books in Italian, I always try to do that. And and I know, unfortunately, that there's a lot of players in Italy who won't buy the game just for the lack of localization because they don't feel confident enough to play a game in English, especially if it's a text-heavy game. And I also know that there are some Italian streamers that I follow that tend to not bring the game to their challenge if it's not localized in Italian because they will spend more time trying to explain what they're doing to the chat rather than enjoying the game. And it's a bit of a pity. So I was playing actually Narita Boy at the time that I found that it's because I told you that I'm fond of Metroidvania, so I was trying to find new ones.
Yeah, makes sense that you were playing it.
Yeah, and I reached out a few developers, including this guy from Narita Boy, which is from Studio Koba, and he was very very nice replying. And he told me that they were not planning to localize their game in Italian because apparently their numbers talked of a low style estimation in Italy, and they prefer to give priority to the Asian market. And bear in mind, I reach him out because the game is translated in French, German, and Spanish. So I was wondering why.
Oh, that's curious.
So close to Italian. So close.
Right? It happens. It happens more often than you think that Italian is excluded.
It makes sense what he said, but at the same time, it's like a vicious circle. It may seem, right? It's like, no,
Yeah.
market research shows that Italians don't game a lot, but I wonder why.
Self-fulfilling
And
prophecy. If they don't have games in Italian, of course, you're not going to see it as much. You're going to play more if you have more games in Italian.
and maybe it's just Metroidvanias that are not so popular in Italy. So the market
Yeah,
research showed that. I'm not
Mhm.
sure. But anyway, like it was very nice answering, and I thought, like, okay, how can we solve this vicious circle, as you said? And it's something that I was also discussing in the past Game Global panel about training and recruitment. And I often see that there's a dual problem of indies not being local and students that don't manage to enter the industry because, of course, the industry requires experience to enter. Students don't have experience. And often they don't have real text to train on because the companies are not very willing to give real
Mhm.
projects, even if they're old projects. And it's mostly because no one in the company has time to go over text files to delete
right.
comments or delete content that was never published in the end, because of course text files include both content that was published and content that was never published. So they don't really want to spend time or have a person that is just spending time on cleaning the text files to give to students. So I was wondering, why can't students try to translate indie games? Why can't developers actually make it kind of official, like maybe through contest? Or I remember Lockjam in the past.
It's back, right?
It's back this year. I saw that
Is
Alan
it?
put something on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it is.
And yeah, I think it's a good way for students to start, because these indie developers probably want to require super, good localization at the start, and
Yes.
they can always hire an editor maybe to fix the problems if they don't think the students have enough experience. But at the same time, like, they could use them for university projects so that actually students have some experience, or put their hands on something real that is
Yeah.
not just a mock-up. And
Right.
this way, I think there could be the useful cooperation somehow. That's just my
Yeah.
opinion. I don't want in any way like promote free work, free translation. But if it's for students, why not?
But yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, last year, was it last year? Yeah, I think it was 2020.
Time isn't real anymore. Don't worry about it.
No. This year didn't exist.
At some point in the past.
But yeah, a couple of months ago, I helped organize with some colleagues a localization bootcamp for Argentinian students. And it was a great experience because, as you said, they don't get enough resources or content to practice with. And spaces like Logjam are essential for students to get out there and gain the experience that they need to be good video game localizers.
Exactly, because I remember that when I was at uni, like I did this really good master with Miguel Bernal. I had a
Mm-hmm.
class on video games localization, so it was not just audiovisual translation. But I couldn't. It was all like chunks of text they managed to get from video games that probably he owned, and he extracted the text from there, like probably copy pasted the
That's
text
so
from
sweet. You see right there the passion.
he was amazing. He's amazing, Miguel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
he is.
but yeah, it would be nice to have a full game, especially indies that are not huge. Maybe it's like, I don't know, 10,000 words. It's something that, or 20,000 words is something that you can do in a university project easily.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like as a team, maybe. And it would be nice. And I think it's a win-win situation for both parties.
Yeah, well, I remember back then we accessed a list of open source video games because, of course, we didn't want to breach any contract or copyright or anything, or go against other person's job or lifetime work. And we got access to pretty interesting games, and we ended up working around a board game. And we also reached to the developers and the people behind the initial game that we were planning on doing. and it was a single person behind the game, and since they had another job, they just worked on that game whenever they could, and there wasn't enough like content that he could extract, and it was a bit complicated. And at the end, we ended up working on that board game, and it was a super fun experience. So if there's any translator or anyone who wants to access content and doesn't know where to, we can definitely leave the website on the open source video games over there, so that in case you need some reference material or want to play around and try to translate any indie game that games, just let us know. So now, after I think it was an incredible interview, we're going to finish up with the round of memes.
You know what?
Laughing
I
and
played a
crying.
game. Yeah, I played a game just last week that it was by a Chinese company, a Chinese indie development studio, and this meme is very accurate to what these guys did. Yeah.
I mean, you see it pretty
so
commonly. Unfortunately, it's out there.
And I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many factors that lead to Google Translate, right? Like budget, time, planning.
It's just easy.
Convenience.
Knowledge, right, of what they are doing also.
Sure.
Exactly. Sometimes it's just their first game and they're so excited about developing it that they don't really think about localization until they need to pitch it to the publisher or even publish it on other platforms to see how the audience receive it. So and then that's the vicious circle. Sorry. Where you get like the crappy translation, so you get bad feedback from your audience. They don't buy your game. You don't get enough money to make it better,
or you need to spend an enormous amount of money to hire
to fix it.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's the same thing that we were talking about earlier. It's instead of going to free Google Translation, take another exit from the highway and go to students.
We beg you, choose another exit.
You can always, pick another exit. Exactly.
Cats will be there.
It summarizes our conversation, right?
But are they doing it wrong? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with this meme. That looks pretty right to me.
I don't know if it's that wrong.
I'm on board.
Sign me in.
If they're there, they work as a kind of anti-stress balls. So I would say that it's a pretty good cat tool as well. But yeah, it's not the standard cat tool that you think about, I suppose.
I do remember when I was in grad school and I was looking over the course list for what I would have to take to graduate. And I was just, I mean, I was a linguist at the time, but had no experience in translation or interpreting or anything. And I definitely saw the cat class and for a minute got like a little excited. Like, I know for a fact this is not a like translation grad program about cats. I know that it's not, but it says cat right there.
You were waiting to open the door and see a bunch of kids running around.
A girl can dream, okay?
I mean,
yeah, exactly. That would be amazing. What a nice therapy in between classes.
Right? Also, I think that every office should have a cat.
I agree.
So not just cat tools, but
seconded.
If you need support to put that into action, just count us in.
Yes, viewers who want to sign our petition can find it in the links.
What is it? Change.org or something. But
I mean, it's for mental health, right? So it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Absolutely. So that was the other cat, and that was me after finishing because always being in the loop of Metroidvania after Hollow Knight, I had to play Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Oh,
and
course
that
you
was me.
did.
In my to-do games.
I was crying for an entire night.
The pain is
I
real.
believe it.
When was this? Please tell me it wasn't during lockdown.
It was during lockdown, actually.
Ooh,
was
you're
last year,
so brave.
That's a lot of feelings to be feeling.
Yeah.
It was last year.
For sure.
Oh yeah, this is great. This is great because I had to choose it because Age of Empire was one of the first games that I ever played.
Same
Same here.
Cheating,
Yeah.
cheating because I'm a kid and I was triggering these codes that were making like a big missile car appearing and destroying everyone. And actually, I replay Age of Empire now and it's super hard. I don't know how I managed. Well, I know how I managed to play because I was cheating. It's super
how
hard.
do I turn this on? How do I
It's
turn this on?
amazing how much
over and
that
over and
helps.
over again?
But
You get the car.
this is great because the first time I saw these Pokemon, I was like, "What? What is he saying? He's saying "woo la la," like the sound of the priest, the converting priest, and this meme is amazing. I think
I like it.
Yeah. We were actually playing with some of our colleagues Age of Empires through our Discord channel, and yeah, we realized we're pretty bad.
We're pretty bad at Age of Empires.
it's
Like
really
we're
hard.
rusty. Yeah, it's really
Especially
hard.
the campaigns. Like it's,
Oh.
I remember I loved the Jeanne d'Arc campaign because I knew a bit the story, and
That's my favorite one, though.
I tried to play it, and they're destroying me. It's horrible. But yeah, this is. I think that the cherry on the top of this meme is that there's a normal type, and then it becomes a psychic because
Psychic.
it's converting things.
Of course.
To red or to blue. Oh yeah, this is a classic. It's a classic, and this happens daily on a daily basis.
Yeah, we've been there more often than we'd like to.
It's normal, I think. It's just
Who
it's
wouldn't
just the
want
industry.
a DeLorean?
And
Yeah,
who wouldn't want that
especially-
translation yesterday.
Especially if you're in the gaming industry, right? Where you have this updates we were talking about today, or live ops, or if you're about to launch a game that it's super secret and you don't want anything to get leaked out, you're gonna keep the localization to the last minute to make sure that it doesn't leak out, of course. And then this happens. We need it for
and it's not enough to ask for updates from the teams because they won't give it to you because it's secret.
But as we've established, there's no such thing as a past deadline in the video game localization industry. So that luckily it's not an issue for any of us on any level.
I don't even know why I chose this meme.
Nope.
Yeah. I want to believe in a world where this meme is just not existing. Yeah,
that's
will do.
Towards the ends of the week, usually.
Of course, yeah.
And good enough stage of translation. Good enough.
What is that flat thing they use to put food on?
It's the thing with the thing.
The shiny ceramic thing round.
The thingy thing.
With the stuff. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
That's why you always need to to keep your dictionary open because you're getting. I'm getting old.
The dictionary and the room of cats.
Yeah,
the room of cats and the dictionary, just to balance it out and make sure that you take a breath between statements and then you find the word. Yeah, I mean, exactly. At least for me, that happens sometimes. I just take a couple of minutes off, and then when I get back, it's there.
You have to get some distance from it.
Unless it's a Friday, right?
And then it's good enough. Friday. Whatever you say is good enough.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes. That's a third cat.
We love every French-speaking person, but let's be honest here.
I'll explain the background because I'm actually
Somebody
studying
had
French.
to say it.
Oh my god. Where is my boyfriend? He's not here, right? So he's French.
Let's be
French.
let's be quiet. Like keep it.
It's oh
Yeah. Delo.
Yeah, that was really hard back then when I was studying French. The pronunciation is one thing is what
it's
you see
hard.
written, and then a whole different story is when you try to pronounce it.
And
And
it's the
things like
hardest.
this
And
happen.
I'm studying it because I've been studying Spanish and German at school, but I never studied French. And I think it's good to have a kind of a bit of everything there.
Sure.
Especially for figs. And plus, my boyfriend is French. So one day, I would like to think that I'll be able to speak to his mom. One day.
Bon
The
chance.
problem is that
Aw.
I mean, you ended up working at Square Enix, so keep.
We
trying.
believe in you.
I tried.
Yeah, if someone can do it, it's you,
hard.
Federica.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind. But yeah,
It's hilarious. I'm going to steal
it's exactly
this.
the same expression that I do when I try to pronounce it.
I'm definitely stealing
to
this.
pronounce French. It's too hard.
Yeah,
How they do it.
yeah, I know.
It's a unique language for sure.
It is.
And I think with that face, with it all, we close our round meme.
It's the time to build that wall of crammed words in there.
Yep.
Exactly.
The meme round
Thingy.
The thing. We're going to do the thing after the thing.
So now we did the thing. I would like to thank you, Federica, for joining us today in this episode. We had so much fun.
Thank you.
For us,
And
it was really happy. It was really funny. It's great.
Good.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it as well. And thanks everyone for tuning in today to this new episode and learning more about Federica's journey throughout the localization industry. Stay tuned for more and see you soon.